DND number 9, Circle of Life in Jesus' Name, Chapter 21, May 5th, Sunday evening. A call from the South Keno estate to the Tanner home. Just 4 more days, Taylor said. Yeah, I gotta say, these past 4 weeks have seemed like a lot longer, Gabe said. Well, in those 4 weeks, a lot has happened. You were shot, kidnapped, rescued, became a national hero, and a model for a body wash. It's a lot. I'm not a model or a hero. Whatever. So how's the schoolwork coming? I'm almost caught up. Finally got the term paper done. Just have a few more assignments. Easy stuff. Are you still going to all the games? Yeah, but it's not as hard now as it was at first. Are there still a bunch of people at the games? I think it's starting to die down. Well, maybe they finally figured out that you're really not going to play anymore. Maybe. Maybe they figured it out, or maybe you're going to play. Well, the last 2 games are the week after prom. Coach asked me if I'd like to practice with the team, and I do. I really want to. But I don't know if my mom will let me, and I don't think she gets it, the very last of my high school sports. Do you get it? Well, I've never played on a team, but I still think I get it. I can put myself in your place, and it makes me hurt to think that this is it and you don't get to play anymore. Thank you. That reminds me, guess where I'm going tomorrow night? Where? My dad and brother and uncles and Logan and JoJo and Jeff and Daniel and Jeremy Davis and I are going to the Dodgers game. That's great, Taylor. I'm really excited about it. I wish I could go with you. So you realize you're the only girl. Yeah, and that's okay except the bathroom thing. The bathroom thing? Yeah, if I had like my mom, then I could go with her. But sometime in between all 7 innings, I'm going to have to use the restroom. So that would be awkward having one of the guys standing outside the restroom waiting on me. Well, it's worth the awkwardness to make sure you're safe. And it's 9. 9 what? 9 innings in pro baseball. It's only 7 innings for high school ball. Oh, well, that's good to know. I'm sure your dad will fill you in. Yep, probably. So I have a question. Shoot. Can you do you know how to dance? He chuckled. Yeah, I do. Really? I'm surprised. Well, why would that surprise you? I'm a martial artist. I'm an athlete. I can control my body. Well, there are a lot of guys who are athletes who can't dance. Yeah, I guess you're right, but that's kind of a stereotype. Have you seen some of those end zone dances? End zone dances? I never heard of it. He sighed. Google it and watch a few vids, and one day I want to take you to a football game. Oh, that's football. I think I know what you're talking about now. So back to the subject. I think it's cool that you can dance. Yeah, well, I have 5 older sisters, and we all dance. We used to make up little choreographed dances and perform for the parents. Taylor giggled. Oh, that is such a cute visual. There must have been some video. I gotta see that. You can ask my mom. Oh, you can believe that I will. Anyway, so if you can dance like you say you can, you want to put together a little choreography to do together at the prom? Sure. I'll pick something on TikTok and send it to you, and you can work on it. Sounds cool. How hard should I make it? You can make it as hard as you want, he said. Ah, a challenge. I like it. Okay, then, be ready for it. Always ready for a challenge. I'm beginning to see that about you. New scene. May 6, Monday morning, Tanner home, Pine Forest, Georgia. Dad, Gabe said as he stuck his head into his father's home office. Yep, what you need, son? Gabe came in and sat down. I need a big favor. It must be important. He glanced at the time. Are you going to school? Yes, sir, I'm about to leave. And yeah, it's important to me. Keegan put the pen down that he had in his hand and gave his son his full attention. Go ahead. So, I've healed really fast, and I was running in the hall at school the other day, and Coach Wilson stopped me. He smiled at his father's look, knowing he was thinking Gabe got in trouble. And he asked me if I'd like to come out and practice with the team. Keegan nodded, and I'm guessing you want to? Yes, sir. Very much. You're feeling up to it? Yes, sir. You just got home from the hospital Friday. I realize that, but I feel good. I feel strong. My leg doesn't hurt at all anymore, and the last wound on my shoulder is healing. My finger is a little sore, but I'd tape it up good. It'll be okay. I see. So you're good to go except for one thing. Yes, sir. And that is, you need to get your mother's permission to do this. Yes, sir. I'm sure you realize that this practicing with the team can only mean one thing. I'm hoping it does. I mean, if I can practice, then I can play. And Dad, it's my last ball experience before I graduate, and it's one of the things I truly love in my life, and I'm going to have to leave it behind. It's killing me. Well, I'd appreciate it if you didn't use those words, Gabe. Sorry. Keegan smiled at his son. I want you to have this final experience. You go ahead and go to practice today, and I'll speak with your mom. Gabe's eyes lit up, and he smiled broadly. Thanks, Dad. Don't thank me yet. We might both be in the doghouse by the time you get home this evening. Well, a man's got to do what a man's got to do, Keegan laughed. Get out of here before I change my mind. New scene, May 6th, still, Monday morning. Ameritech Central Offices in Los Angeles, California. You got anything? Eric asked. Well, yes and no, Jason said with a sigh. We found the Santa Fe. It was registered to a Roger Chen, who is an Uber driver. The ride was requested online without the app and paid for by a prepaid Visa gift card. The name given was Marilyn Monroe, obviously fake. Fare was dropped off at the Gateway Shopping Center. And what's there? Pizza place, ice cream shop, Home Depot, Starbucks, Marshall's, several fast food establishments, PetSmart. Eric sighed. I sent an agent with her picture to ask at every place, but no one recognizes her. I'll send someone again, different shifts. Eric nodded. Thanks, Jason. This is not a freebie. Make sure you bill me. We'll see. Eric rolled his eyes. Bill me, or I'll stop asking you for help. Whatever, Master Kino. That's Grandmaster Kino, Eric said with a grin. Jason bowed. I'll let you know what I find. Are you still flying Ameritech's Friendly Skies to New York on Friday? Yes, I still intend to go. Can't let Marissa down. She finally has her act together, and I'm proud of her and want to make sure she knows it. Of course, Kimmy is thinking she'd like to go too. Jensen is on assignment, but that still gives you guys Jeff and Agent Coley as far as protection. And me, Eric nodded. That goes without saying, Grandmaster Kino. It's still May 6th. It's Monday evening, Tanner home, Pine Forest, Georgia. Being downstairs alone and working on the choreography Taylor sent was actually relaxing for Gabe. He'd come home from practice to his mother, not speaking to his father, and his sisters divided on the subject. Rose and Daisy took his side. Lily and Violet took their mother's side. He hated to be the cause of contention between his father and mother. He just wished his mom had played some sports in school, and then she'd understand. He'd eaten quickly and headed downstairs to avoid all the contention he'd caused. First, he did a little strength workout because it was evident at practice that he'd lost a little bit of strength. He seemed to still have his speed, but his throwing arm was a little weaker. Not good for a shortstop. Still, it was all muscle memory, and he was almost back to his old self after just one day of practice. And the team had been ecstatic for him to be back, especially Peyton. Even the guy who'd been pulled off the bench to play right field appeared glad to have his teammate back. The original right fielder had moved to left, the left fielder had moved to third, and the third baseman to short in the shift to compensate for Gabe's absence. If Gabe was good enough to play tomorrow, that would change. But Gabe was pretty sure he wasn't quite ready. Now he was working on the choreography. The music Taylor chose was Uptown Funk, and she chose choreography with some popping, locking, and crump mixed in with some older pop styles. It was a challenge, but he had it down. He was breathing a little harder than normal, but he knew it wouldn't take much to get his fitness back. He decided he would work on the dance for 30 more minutes and then head upstairs to finish some schoolwork. Then he'd probably grab a snack before he fell unconscious into bed. He needed to sleep so he didn't get sick again and give his mom the opportunity to say, "I told you so." New scene. It's May 7th, Tuesday morning, Tanner home, Pine Forest, Georgia. "Gabe," Rose said sharply. Gabe gasped and sat straight up in bed. Oversleeping won't help your cause very much. He rubbed a hand over his face and glanced at the bedside clock. "Good grief," he muttered as he jumped out of the bed. "Thanks, Rose." She smiled. "I got your back, hon. You better move fast." She tossed a paper bag at him. "Here's some breakfast. You owe me," she said with a laugh as she left the room. Gabe dressed quickly, gathered his books, his sports bag, and his breakfast and headed downstairs and poked his head in his father's office. "Good morning, Dad. Gotta go. Running late." Keegan frowned. "Good morning. And I don't care how late you're running. You'd better speak to your mother before you leave this house." Gabe nodded and ran into the kitchen. He kissed Iris. Lizzie turned around, her hands on her hips. "You missed breakfast." He held up the bag. "I got it right here." "How are you feeling?" "I'm feeling great." "Uh-huh. And will you play today?" "I doubt it." Lizzie sighed. "I love you. You know that, right? That's why I worry about you." He came to her and kissed her cheek. "I know. I love you too, but I gotta go." "Bye," she said softly. Gabe ran out the door. In his office, Keegan lifted the phone. "Hello?" "Yes, I'm looking for an Agent Keegan Tanner." "You found him. How can I help you?" "Actually, I have some business I'd like to take up with you concerning a few members of your family." He frowned. "Which members of my family are you referring to?" "I'm speaking of your daughters." "Are you? Interesting." "Yes, sir. I saw a picture of your daughters recently online. I've tried to find their phone numbers, but it seems I can find very little information on them." "Well, then I guess that means it's working." "What's working?" "Their security. You do know I'm with Ameritech Security, right?" Yes, sir." "Suppose you start from the beginning and tell me who you are and what you want with my daughters, and you have about 5 seconds." "Well, right now I represent Pure Life Cosmetics. They have a line of all natural makeups and skin creams called Twin Wave Beauty. I saw a picture of your daughters on teenspotter.com and have been trying to reach them. I was able to contact a woman who runs the site named Isla August, and she refused to give me any information except that they were your daughters and I could reach you at Ameritech Security." "I see. And your name is?" "My name is Michael Moreland." Keegan was silent a moment. "Hello? That's your real name?" "Yes, sir. I don't think I understand." Keegan didn't believe in coincidences. Michael Moreland was the false name he'd used when he was undercover with the FBI. It was the name Lizzie knew him by during the few months that she'd taken care of him after his accident, when he was hiding from the bad guys, and during the time they'd fallen in love. "Mr. Moreland, how old are you?" "I'm only 24, sir, but I'm good at what I do." "And what is it you do?" "I plan ad campaigns or media campaigns for small companies that can't afford to hire a big advertising agency. I've successfully launched several young companies into the limelight." "You won't mind if I do a little research on you?" "No, sir, I don't mind." "Which daughters are you interested in speaking with?" "The twins." "Well, now that doesn't narrow it down too much." "Well, from the picture I saw, it looks like there are two sets. I am interested in speaking with either of them." "And what exactly is your focus?" "Well, sir, if you don't mind, I'd prefer to take that up with them. From the little I've been able to find out, they are legally adults and capable of handling their own business." Keegan counted to 10. "And we're about to be done. You might want to rethink your approach and get back to me." But couldn't I just get their numbers? I just want to talk, and you might want to do some research on me. He hung up the phone, picked up his cell. Leslie? Yes, sir. Put a trace on this number. He gave her the readout from his office phone. The name is Michael Moreland, age 24. Find out everything you can. Get me about him, right down to a birth certificate. Yes, sir. Thanks, and good morning. Good morning, sir, she said brightly. New scene. It's May 7th, Tuesday afternoon. Pine Forest High School, Pine Forest, Georgia. The locker room was awfully quiet. Gabe wondered what was going on. This somber attitude was not the way to go out there and win. He walked over to where Peyton was stretching. Hey, Peyton, what's going on? What do you mean? Let that pass. Part of a train. What do you mean? I mean, it seems more like we're going to a funeral than out to play ball during a winning season. I mean, it seems like we're going to a funeral than out to play ball during a winning season. Peyton glanced around. I think the guys are just thinking about old times. You know, wishing you were still playing, wishing you were back. Well, that's cool and all. I know I wish the same thing, but at least Coach let me practice with you guys yesterday. And at least I'm here in the locker room and not just meeting you guys in the dugout. It's almost like I'm still part of the team. A few of the other seniors gathered around. Yeah, but you ain't part of the team, Gabe, Lucas retorted. Gabe looked up at him, surprised by the harshness in his voice. Maybe the guys weren't so happy to have him back. He nodded. Okay, that's cool. I get it. Nah, I don't think you do, Elias said. Well, if something could break his heart, this was probably the thing that could do it. Gabe swallowed. I think I do. You guys took up the slack and produced a winning season without me, and that is freaking awesome, but it was one thing to invite me into the dugout during games and another whole thing to invite me back to practice and have me in the locker room. You guys did it without me, and you sure don't need me now that you're down to your last 4 games. Liam stepped forward. You think you can just waltz back in here and pick up where you left off just like that? Well, that's not how it is. You're right, that's not how it is, Gabe began as he stood up, an instinctive self-defense move. If this was heading where it seemed it was heading, he needed a little bit of room. It's just that it's my final season of a life shoved him back down. Sit down, and for once just shut up, Tanner. You can't just come back here and think you're going to join us as part of the team in that dugout unless you have this. The last voice was that of Coach Wilson. The guys parted and the coach handed him a new uniform, and the guys all cheered. Gabe blinked and looked around at all the smiling faces. He breathed a huge sigh of relief. He hadn't even thought about his uniform. The one he had was soaked with blood and in an evidence bag with the FBI. We had you going, Elias said with a laugh. Gabe smiled and nodded. Yeah, you did. I thought I was going to have to kick somebody's butt. I know, Lucas said. When you stood up, I thought, uh-oh, here we go. The team laughed. Well, Tanner, Coach began, the team, the other coaches, and me, we're all glad to have you back with us, the seniors especially. You've played with these guys all your life, from way back in T-ball, and they all have come to me and asked me if we could make this happen. So, welcome back, son. Don't know how much playing time you'll get, but at least you're part of the team. Gabe nodded. Thanks, guys. He had to stop and clear his throat because of the emotion he felt. It's been killing me to think that all this was over. I mean, I realize it's about to be over anyway, but I really needed this. It means more than I can say, really. Thanks. We got you, Gabe, Peyton said, for life. Give me a break, Peyton. What's next? A pinky swear, Elias said. The team laughed. Suit up, guys, Coach barked. 5 minutes. New scene. The game was finally back at home. Gabe took in every single moment. He looked for his father up in the home side bleachers, and there he was, as usual, bouncing Iris on his hip as he put his fingers to his mouth and whistled. Iris put her hands over her ears, making Gabe smile. He was surprised to see his mother sitting there, too. She smiled at him, and his heart healed. His sisters, except for Heather, were there with dates, it appeared. Jake and Lena waved, and Lena let loose one of her deafening whistles. He tried to take it all in, commit it to memory. The national anthem, the vets on the field, the smell of dirt mixed with the hot dogs and hamburgers cooking at the concession stand, the crowd cheering and chanting and screaming at the umpires. It was awesome. Every time the guys came in from the field, they wiped their hands on Gabe's new uniform. It almost looked like he'd actually played. At one point, Peyton wiped his hands and face on Gabe's shirt. "Ugh, you smell," Gabe said as he pushed him away. "Guess he needs some of your body wash," Carlos suggested. The team all laughed. "You guys don't fool me," Gabe replied. "I could smell that stuff all over the locker room. Every single one of you has been using it." They laughed again, but didn't deny it. Gabe did not get to play, but he didn't expect to. He'd only been to one practice. They won the game, which put them at 18 wins, 5 losses for the season. He had a doubleheader on Friday, the day before the prom, and that made him realize something. Taylor would be here in Pine Forest. Would she want to come to his game? Would she be upset that he wasn't spending the evening with her? It was the classic not being able to have your cake and eat it too. Because he wanted to play ball and he wanted to be with Taylor, he sighed. He'd been committed to his team before he and Taylor became interested in each other. He'd been desperate to be back on the team. He hoped she would understand. He hadn't had time to speak to her. She was at the Dodgers game last night. He woke up late and had been at school all day. She hadn't texted him. The game ended. His parents waited on him and drove behind him on the way home, as they'd been doing since the incident. As soon as he got home, he showered and went to his mom to reapply a dry bandage. She was quiet as she dressed the wound. Are you still mad at me?" he asked. "Not mad, Gabriel, just worried." "How does it look?" "It looks calm and like it's healing. Just be careful. We have to keep it clean and dry." "Yes, ma'am, I will." "I'm sad that you don't think I understand," Lizzie said. "I didn't mean to make you sad, Mom. It's okay that you don't understand. You never played on a team before." "I was a cheerleader in high school. My boyfriend was the captain of the football team. I believe I do understand." "Oh, well, I didn't know that," Gabe said softly. "What position did he play?" "He was the quarterback, and he was good." "Get any offers?" "Yes, several, from D1 schools, but he was also very smart and applied to MIT and was accepted. And that's where he would have gone to school." "Would have?" "Yes. Instead, he ended up getting a girl pregnant, and he ended up going into the military to support her and the baby." "But he was your boyfriend, so he cheated on you?" She smiled. "No." The light went on. Oh, so we're talking about my sister's father." "Yes." He was quiet a minute. "Why have we never talked about this?" She sighed. "It doesn't seem like the kind of thing a mother just brings up to talk to her son about." He nodded thoughtfully. "It sounds like it was a hard time for you." "Oh, it was. But there are always consequences to your actions. Remember that. We should have resisted the sexual attraction, but it was too strong, and we were too weak, and that's what happened. His parents never forgave me." "Forgave you?" "Well, if not for me, their son would have gone to MIT and made something really big of himself, and instead, because of me, he's dead." "Mom, you don't really think that, do you?" "It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is the moral of the story. Don't have sex until you're married." He nodded, thinking of the story Braden told him about being conceived in a hospital bed before his parents were married. He wondered if they still would have been married if she hadn't been pregnant with him. However, he couldn't ask because he promised Braden he wouldn't tell his parents that Braden had let slip the little secret. He looked up. "I just want you to know, I love you, Mom." She hugged him. "I love you too, baby boy." "And you still love Dad too, right?" "Well, what a silly question. I love your father with all my heart." Gabe smiled. "That's good to know. One more question, Mom." She brushed a hand through his hair. Go ahead. Are you really happy about this baby? She smiled. Oh, absolutely. Just as happy and excited as I was when I was expecting you. Children are such a blessing, a gift from God, and I only pray I will be equal to the task. You will be, Mom, 'cause you are the best mom ever. New scene. It's May 7th, late Tuesday night. A call from the Tanner home to the South Keno estate. So, Tay, how was the game? Gabe asked. It was so much fun. I can't believe I've been missing this stuff all my life. I really learned a lot, and the more I learn, the more I love it. I want to go to more games. I want to get a Dodgers jersey and, hold up. If you're going to get a jersey, it should be a Braves jersey. Why's that? 'Cause they're my team, and I'm going to take you to a bunch of their games. Really? How are you going to do that? Well, I'm graduating in a few weeks, and your summer vacation is coming up. Maybe you can come here to visit for a few weeks, and maybe I can come there too, and we can actually go on real dates, and I'll take you to as many games as you want. That would make me really happy, but I doubt that will happen. My parents are very strict when it comes to my safety. Well, my father provides security for thousands of cases. Your dad knows that. You'd be safe here with us. Well, you weren't. He was silent a moment. Point made. We can assign an agent to you. I'll put out feelers to my parents and see what they think. You do that. Anyway, I'm glad to hear that you want to see more baseball. Why do you say that? Well, because the coach asked me if I wanted to practice with them, and they presented me with a new uniform, which means there's a chance I'll get to play on Friday. Oh, I would love to see you play again. Well, I'm really glad about that. I was worried you'd be upset that you came all this way and I was playing ball. You must know I'm not like that. I don't demand everything be about me. I loved watching you play that first time, and I'll love it again. I could watch you play all night. Cool, because it's a doubleheader. What's a doubleheader? It's where we played 2 games back to back. Oh, wow. That sounds like fun. Gabe chuckled. Taylor, you are truly a very cool chick. You're pretty cool yourself, Gabriel Tanner. Well, I need to get some sleep, but it won't be long now until we're together. I probably won't be able to talk to you again until I see you on Thursday after practice. Less than 48 hours. I can't wait. New scene. It's May 7th, still, even later, Tuesday night, Tanner home, Pine Forest, Georgia. Once Keegan put Iris to bed, he called the rest of his girls together in the den. He sat down next to Lizzie and smiled at the twins. I know it's late, but we needed to have this meeting, and there never seems to be a time when we have you all together. But this is important, so bear with me. Well, don't beat around the bush, Dad, Rose said. If someone's sick or hurt, just come out and tell me. He smiled. No, it's nothing like that. I received a call early this morning from a young man who saw your picture on teenspotter.com. He wanted your contact information. He said he was representing a cosmetic company called Twin Wave. You ever heard of it? Yes, Lily answered. We use a few of their products. Well, my assumption is that he saw your picture and wanted to use you in some advertising for the company. Your assumption? Daisy asked. Yes, he didn't get around to actually telling me exactly what he wanted, because when I asked, he told me you ladies were legally old enough to make your own decisions, and he preferred to speak with you personally. Rose laughed. Ha, I bet that went over well. Yep, that was pretty much the end of the conversation. I told him to call me back when he figured out a better approach. Good for you, Dad, Violet said. I mean, he must not be from around here. Her sisters laughed. He shook his head. The thing is, my flowers, he is correct. You are legally old enough to make your own decisions. What about the you live in my house, you'll live by my rules thing? Rose asked. Well, that is still true. That will never change. You girls chose to live here while you're in school. I have no problem with that. But no shenanigans, in or outside of this home. We all go to church together, etc. You know the rules, but I don't have the right to screen what may be a career opportunity for you without speaking with you first. Now, I've spoken with your mom, and she feels the way I do. She only has a problem with one thing, which we will talk about a little later. So you check this guy out? Rose asked. Yes. He seems to be who he says he is. He's some kind of media prodigy. He devises branding and ad campaigns for small companies. So far, he's put every single company he's worked for on the map. My question for each of you is, do you want me to give him your contact information? The twins looked at each other. It was Rose who responded, as usual. Well, that depends on something. You said you told him to figure out a better approach. If he does and has the guts to reach out to you again and you feel like he's adjusted satisfactorily and you trust him, then, and only then, will I be willing to hear what he has to say. But that's only me. Sisters? She looked pointedly at her sisters. We agree with Rose, Violet said. The other two nodded. Keegan sighed. You girls are not stupid. You are all beyond beautiful. You are sexy, he said with a sigh. Was that hard for you to say? Lily said, making her sisters and mother giggle. I'm just trying to see you the way the guys see you. Keegan frowned. What I'm trying to say is you are not naive concerning how the world sees beautiful young ladies. I mean, 2 sets of twins, all blondes, all blue-eyed, all with good bodies. I don't want you to be exploited as sex symbols. If he intends to use you as models or spokesperson for the Twin Wave brand, that's fine. But I don't want you in provocative clothing or doing provocative acts. That's my personal feeling about that. He looked up at his wife. Lizzie? She smiled and nodded her head. What we want and what you girls want may end up being different, though I hope not. What you choose is between you and God. You know he wants you to be honest and clean and chaste. He wants you to represent his kingdom the best that you can. And we've tried to teach you the difference between right and wrong. So far, you've done nothing but make us proud. But there is a time we have to let go and allow you to make your own decisions. I only ask that you pray about every decision you have to make and listen, really listen for the answer. And then actually obey. Well said, Elizabeth, Keegan said softly. So, Rose began, what was the other thing? You said Mom has a problem with one thing. Keegan nodded. Yeah. I don't know if it's something good or bad. I know you've heard us say many times that there are no such things as coincidences. And when something synchronistic happens or presents itself, it's either a sign from God that we are on the right path, or at least a sign saying, stand up, take notice, this is significant. But it can also even be a warning. I probably would have just brushed off his phone call completely, if not for this synchronicity. Good grief, Dad, I'm on pins and needles here, Rose said. Well, the man's name is Michael Moreland, Keegan said quickly, which was the name I used way back when you first met me. Oh, I remember, Daisy said. I was only 3, but I remember. You told us you were just teasing us, and it was later when we heard all the story that we understood you'd been undercover for the FBI. So, when this guy told me his name, it freaked me out a little. Me too, Lizzie said. It is kind of freaky, Rose said, but think about it, Mom. The man you fell in love with had this name, or had it at first, so this may not be a bad sign. Maybe, Lizzie said half-heartedly. But I was lying to your mother with that name. It was a deception, and the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in men who are truthful, Keegan quoted. Proverbs, Daisy asked. Keegan smiled and nodded. So you had him checked out. He's really who he says he is? Keegan nodded again. So he's not deceiving us, Rose said. Well, not in his name, Keegan said, but I definitely think we should be very cautious in proceeding. I agree, Violet said. She glanced at her twin. Rose had always been hard-headed. She made snap decisions. Some of that was simply because her mind was quick and sharp, but part of that was her brazen personality. She hoped she would take their parents' advice and pray and be cautious. New scene. It is now May 9th, Thursday, the wee hours of the morning. Tanner home, Pine Forest, Georgia. Keegan glanced at the clock. It was 2 a.m. He pulled his gun from the night table and headed downstairs. He checked the house, listened at the entrance to the den, entered the room, and laid the weapon down on a table. His son sat on the couch looking up at the TV screen, the video of his abduction playing with the sound turned down low. "Gabriel?" Keegan said softly. Gabe turned slowly and looked up at his father. "Yes, sir." "Sorry, did I disturb you?" Keegan ignored his question. "What's going on?" Gabe shrugged. "I couldn't sleep, had a nightmare. I thought maybe I could get some of this stuff out of my brain. You know, I forgot what they call it." "Immersion therapy," Keegan supplied. "You want to talk about the nightmare?" Gabe thought about the question and shuddered. "Nope, don't think so." Keegan sat down on the sofa next to his son and they watched the video for a little while in silence. Watching a full-grown man kick his son made Keegan want to kill, and he knew that was not a good thing. It would be so easy to go down that road. He wondered what Gabe thought as he watched it. "How does seeing that guy kick you, how does that make you feel?" Keegan asked. Gabe shrugged. It just makes me remember how painful it was every time he kicked me. It really hurt. I can't really describe how much it hurt." Keegan's lips pressed together tightly. "It doesn't make you mad at the guy?" "No. I mean, I think he was just following orders, right? Who knows how he got hired by Mia? Why he accepted pay to do her bidding. I'm trying not to judge." Keegan nodded. "What if, let's say, that was one of your sisters he was kicking?" Gabe was silent as he thought, and finally he spoke softly. "Well, that would make me mad. It would actually make me crazy. It would make me want to beat the guy to a pulp." Keegan nodded. "Is that how you feel when you see it, Dad?" "Yes. I'm trying to not feel that way, but I'm weak." "You're human, Dad, and you're strong, and I'm grateful for your strength. What's that Chinese proverb? It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war." "I believe in you, Dad. I want to be just like you." "No, son, be better than me." "Yeah, I don't think that's possible." Keegan sighed. "You need to try to get some sleep." Gabe nodded and turned off the video. "Yes, sir. I think I can. Thanks, Dad. Good night." "Good night, son." All right, it's still new scene, still May 9th, Thursday afternoon, Pine Forest, Georgia. Gabe couldn't keep the smile off his face as he checked out his truck, jumped in, and sped away from practice. What an awesome day. He was completely caught up with his schoolwork. He'd been told by two of his teachers that his grade was so high he was exempted from having to take his end-of-year exams. He would be graduating summa cum laude, but all that was just the beginning. His practices the past 2 days had gone well, and he would probably get to play tomorrow. Maybe even start. Most of all, Taylor and her mom had arrived and were currently at the inn talking to Jake and Lena about their wedding. He rushed home and flew in the house, straight into the kitchen. He filled a glass with raw milk and drank it down. Then he went in search of his parents and found them in his father's office. He hugged his mother, kissed her cheek, and told them the good news about his grades, about graduating with honors, and about playing tomorrow. He then went to leave the room in a rush. "Where do you think you're headed to?" Keegan stated. "To take a quick shower." "Before you do that, you have some chores to take care of. The garage has to be cleaned out, the hedges in the back need to be trimmed, and the cars need washing." Gabe's face fell. He drew a deep breath and nodded. "Okay, but..." Keegan laughed. "I'm just kidding, Gabe. Go." He grinned. "Yes, sir. Thanks. Where's Iris?" "She's out back with Lily," Lizzie answered. He nodded. "Okay, I'll see her later." He rushed up the stairs. 20 minutes later, he came down, dressed casually in jeans and a deep blue knit shirt. He started out the door. "Wait," one of his sisters yelled at him. He stopped and went into the kitchen, his impatience showing. Rose looked him over, reached up and pulled a little bit of his hair down onto his forehead. She leaned forward and smelled him and nodded. You'll do. Walk over there. Don't run, 'cause you'll get sweaty. He grinned. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am? I think I like that. She smiled and kissed his cheek. Go. Don't make her wait any longer. He ran out the door and forced himself to walk. He went out the side security gate, punching in the code to unlock it. While he walked the short distance, he pulled out his phone and called her, and she answered on the first ring. Hi, Gabe. Hey, I'm about 30 seconds away from the inn. The phone went dead. Hello? No answer. He shoved the phone in his pocket, quickly moved along the walk to the front of the inn, looked up, and a beautiful girl came running out the door, down the steps, and jumped into his arms. His heart slammed into his chest. The relief was immediate. The ache he'd been feeling for so long was gone. She had her body wrapped around him, her arms around his neck, her legs around his waist, her head on his shoulder, which was a little painful, but he didn't care. He had one hand snug around her waist, holding her tight, and the other tangled in her thick, black, silky hair, and she raised her head to look at him, and he crushed his lips to hers. He let go of her waist, and she slid down to stand in front of him. He used both hands now to cup her beautiful face, and kissed her again, this time more gently, and slowly, and thoroughly. Lord, you smell so good, she said with a giggle. You do too, he whispered, and then kissed her again. As soon as he pulled away, she squealed in delight and jumped up again to wrap her legs around his waist. Ah, this feels so good. Oh, Gabe, I'm so happy to finally be near you again. Me too, he said softly. He smiled. I'm happy to be near you. She laughed. Okay, you two, come on inside, Bree called. Giggling, Taylor took Gabe's hand and they walked into the inn. Bree hugged the young man whom her daughter was so in love with, put her hands on either side of his face, and smiled at him. I am so very grateful that you are standing here, alive and well, young man. Thank you, Mrs. Keno. Me too. How are you feeling? Strong? Back to normal? He nodded. Yes, ma'am, almost. Maybe a little weaker, but the strength will come back soon enough. How about in here? She said, tapping his head. I think I'm good. Is anyone hungry for some dinner? Miss Mattie called. They gathered around the giant table along with the other guests at the inn. The other guests were full of questions for the famous people sitting at the table. They fawned over Bree and her latest movies. They cooed over Taylor and her beauty, saying she looked like a Polynesian princess, and they gushed over Gabriel and his ordeal. Gabriel used the opening to praise Jake, who'd been key in rescuing him, and that turned the conversation successfully to sacrifices made by the military. Good move, Taylor whispered. He smiled. Thanks. So you want to go somewhere and work on our dance? I would love to. He looked at his phone. It's only 7:30. It'll be light outside another hour or so. We can go out back. She smiled. Let's do it. She glanced at her mother. Mom, can we be excused? We have to work on our choreography. Bree nodded. Where are you going? Just in the back, on that little grassy area on the other side of the pool. Bree sighed. An Ameritech agent had picked them up from the airport and brought them to the inn, and she was second-guessing her actions. I shouldn't have sent Agent Dalton home for the night. John Apple nodded at his son. I can watch out for them, Jake volunteered. Bree looked over at the young man. He was a Marine, Special Forces. He looked so young and innocent, but she understood he was indeed capable of taking care of business. She nodded. Thanks, Jake. That would be great. Awesome, Lena said. I can't wait to see this dance. Gabe smiled. He was pretty sure they all were going to be pretty impressed. The youngsters cleared their dishes and headed out back. They got Lena to hold the phone and play the music over and over. Taylor had spliced several TikTok videos together to make a longer dance, and Lena and Jake were highly impressed by the dancers. Geez, Gabe, is there anything you can't do? Lena complained. Gabe just shook his head at the silly remark. They worked for over an hour and finally sat down on the grass to chat as the sun sank down behind the trees. Taylor told Lena and Jake about the baseball game she'd been to, and then they chatted about the wedding plans that were starting to take shape. Gabe didn't want the night to end, but he knew he had to get some sleep. He had school in the morning and a doubleheader in the evening. So he finally stood and held his hand out to Taylor. I need to get you inside and head on home. She stood but pouted. I just want to stay with you. He turned to her and pulled her close. I feel the same way, but I have to get some rest. I'll call you in a bit. Jake and Lena moved away to give them some privacy, and Gabe kissed her. Lord have mercy, Taylor, I want to bring you back home with me. I can't stand to be away from you, she whispered. Let's sneak out and meet tonight. He chuckled. We could, if you want to make it so I'll never be able to see you again. Is that what you want? No, of course not. Well, your parents, and mine for that matter, are counting on me to be responsible enough to take care of you and make the right decisions. As much as that sounds like a really good time, I have to decline. She sighed. Are you mad at me? She shook her head. How could I be mad at you? He pulled her in hard against him and kissed her again. Good night, Taylor. I'll walk you in. And that is the end of chapter 21.